All right, push scholars that are deciding to listen to this. I'm going to try to go as quickly as I can, but there are definitely some things that changed. This is the Affluent Society, Part 2. We looked at a lot of it in class, and so I'm just finishing that off. So one of the things that became popular was, of course, travel and outdoor recreation, and with that came a new push for environmental, preservation. And one of the groups that was particularly loud in this movement was the Sierra Club. And they were especially concerned about the Echo Park. And so this is a picture of Echo Park here. And this is also another reserve, if you will, that was pushed for during this time. And that's Dinosaur National Monument. Been there numerous times. They found dinosaur bones there, and you can hike all over there. There's a funny story. I was hiking with some friends of ours, and they had an infant, and he decided to poop all over my friend's shoulder as we were hiking down. So that was not so good, but beautiful place. And then, of course, Grand Teton National Park. If you ever get a chance to go there, please do. It is absolutely gorgeous, and that is another natural preserve. So it became a national park. This is part of the ongoing push for more and more of those to preserve our environment. Organized society and its distractors. So one of the changes that was going on during this time frame is those that are kind of pushing against the norm, okay, the ideal, if you will. And so this book, The Organization Man, was all about the 9 to 5 corporate world. And then there were those that also kind of wanted to really push for corporate success, I guess. That would be the push in this time frame. And then this one is a preparatory school. So preparatory schools become something that is more and more popular, where you put your kid in a prep school. That would be a specialized school for, a specific skill. And so at this one, they're doing rifle practice there in Georgetown. So people of plenty, how did the workforce, the labor force shake out here? We've got white collar workers, blue collar workers, and pink collar workers. Okay, so the company man, okay, that was factory workers, of course, are decreasing now, and we're limiting the blue collar worker, okay, so the one that has a low skill worker, and then we're getting factories, and there's a giant increase in more white collar workers, so the executives, the corporate workers, those are at the office, that kind of thing, and more pink collar jobs as well for women. The ideal of 1950s man was seen as the provider, the protector, boss of the house. That was reinforced by Life magazine for sure, and also by TV shows. And that's what was portrayed in that book and in many shows as well. Also, we've got some 25 best books of the 1950s. That gives you, we were selling a lot of books at this point. So reading was on the increase, despite the television increase, which is really kind of surprising, but also records become a thing of the day. So 45s, you guys, if you've ever seen these, but I am very well acquainted with them because we had LPs, which are albums, the big albums, and then the 45s, which is one song in the front and one song in the back. Albums would obviously have probably 6 or 7 on each side. You put a little needle on it and it plays the song. And it was very fun having a record collection. My sister and I used to go to the PX, that's the military base grocery store, and buy, not grocery store, but Publix or store, and buy 45s because we just love music. So rock and roll, of course, was the thing of the day. Now, I was not around in the 1950s. Okay, this went on clear through the 80s or the 70s. The records were still a big thing. There was the Beat generation. So these were the countercultural youth culture that is always a part of really pretty much every group of teens for sure, and almost every generation. So juvenile delinquency was one choice, or Happy Days. So you've probably never seen Happy Days, but that is where you've got your good son who does everything right, and then you also have your juvenile delinquent and Fonzie who does not do everything right. The big hero of the juvenile delinquency mindset was James Dean. He was the bad guy of the time. Of course, the good guy here, that is Gilligan's Island. And then you've got another bad guy in Marlon Brando. He played the bad guy in the movie. So you kind of got, showing, two options for youth in shows of the time. There were some social critics that, again, were against conformity. They also wanted to see more social spending, so spending on entitlements, social programs, people in need, that kind of thing, to solve the ills of the day. And then you've also got some more literature here that would be considered beatnik literature. So those are the ones that kind of go against culture and, rebel against the norm. You should stop and read this. This is by Ginsburg, which she was on the picture before, just to give you an idea of the spirit of the time. So who are the beatniks? Again, these two are beatnik literature or writers. And here's a couple quotes to kind of give you an idea of what they thought of themselves. How did they describe the beat generation? Of course, we got the king of rock and roll, and also I would say the other king of rock and roll, which is Chuck Berry, and of course Elvis Presley. Lots of teens, and now they are now a market. So businesses are selling specifically to teens. This is where the term teenager came from. It didn't even exist before. And really it started to exist because teens for the first time had their own money to spend. Okay, we are affluent, and so things, markets or businesses wanted to cater to this new teen market, and rock and roll was certainly a big part of that. Here are some other great groups that were a part of it, and a lot of us started in I think it might have been the late 40s, but probably the 50s, American Bandstand. And this is where they played the top 40 hits every Saturday, and you your kids on TV dance to the hits, and you got to watch them. And so you see the Temptations and, all the new groups, and Dick Clark was the MC of the show, and it lasted all the way through the 70s. Some bands were one hit wonders. You can watch the video. This was a movie that was done on the one hit band that, they'd have a great hit and then all of a sudden they'd kind of disappear because the band would break up, that kind of thing. There was also a religious revival during this time frame. So church memberships were certainly going up. There were a lot of television preachers. It was kind of another great awakening. And these were three of the big ones, probably the biggest, Billy Graham and his message of salvation and his huge stadium meetings that he called crusades. And people would come and they were singing and praying and he would speak. And then lots of people would walk forward to give their life to Jesus. Hollywood, these were the movies I grew up with, not because I lived in the 50s, but they were popular for a long time. And they were biblical, okay? So they were about things of the Bible. Again, trying to reinforce good ethics in the population. The robe, supposedly about the robe that Jesus wore after the crucifixion and that he shed when he rose from the grave, and how it kind of healed people. It was a really kind of cool movie. But anyway, 10 Commandments, that was about, of course, Moses, and then his trek, and then trek back into Egypt, and the plagues. And then you got Ben-Hur, that was about a young Jewish man and the struggles he goes through with persecution, and then he is brought in to be a gladiator, and goes through the persecution of Rome, and so on and so forth. And it was a good movie. And then we've got rock and roll on one side, and then we've got the Nixon rise on the other side as far as the political side. So were we conforming or were we going in a different direction? Um, Here, Marilyn Monroe was another controversial figure. Famous picture of her being in front of a fan and her dress blowing up, and she's actually dark haired, to be honest with you, and she got completely made over by Hollywood, and it really kind of destroyed her life, actually. But she was made famous when she sang to JFK, who was known to cheat on his wife and with women, but she sang to him at a Christmas gathering, and that got a lot of attention. We also have baseball is a big thing, and of course Jackie Robinson and being allowed to play in the National Baseball League, which was brand new and controversial. And then this is Billy Graham as well as part of the culture. Other things that were going on were African American writers were being recognized and becoming popular. And so that was and they were bringing attention to the issues that they were facing. And that was known as the Other America in your book, okay? And so on the margins of this, okay, is the persistent poverty that a lot of African Americans, but not only African Americans, were facing. Also, Appalachian miners were facing very similar things, as well as other populations. In the rural area, declining agricultural prices, decreased production, so due to mechanization, so a lot of farmers were losing their farms. So it was not all affluent. So here gives you a little bit of an idea of where the races were at this point. Again, still not a big percentage of Asians or Hispanics in the population, but this gives you some idea of where they stood at this time. In addition to this, you've got some movement by African Americans into the political realm, and some pushes to try to revitalize the ghettos, the inner cities of some of the big cities. You've got whites still moving in and Hispanics moving in. That caused some issues with rival gangs, but it also caused some to want to push African Americans out as, beautifying the inner cities, kind of an idea. Again, this gives you a little bit of idea of African American population, where they are primarily, and the totals. So we've got, again, another African American migration. This is a story, and you can kind of read this. I won't, insult you by thinking you can't read this, but go ahead and read this, and it gives you a little piece of this book, kind of a controversial book. Rosa Parks, of course, in this time frame, and here's where we head into the civil rights movement, which you have already done. So we'll end here.